So, hi, Brittany.
Hi.
Thank you for agreeing to do this interview for Get It, Got It Good on WBGR Health and Wellness Channel, which is part of the WBGR network. You know, we have several channels.
Mhm.
But I'm really excited to interview you because I've heard so much about you. The fact that you are a local from DMV. I know you currently live in New York, though, right?
That's correct. Yep.
So, what part of New York are you staying in?
I live in Harlem right now. Um, Still legit Harlem, and I love it. Well, I shouldn't say I love it. It's growing on me. That's more truthful. And yeah, I've only been here. Technically, I've been here since August of last year. But when I moved here, the month after I moved here, everything happened with Boomerang. And I had moved from Atlanta to New York. And so when that happened, I had to go back to Atlanta to film everything. And I had just moved from there. So technically, I've only really been living in New York, back in New York since the top of this year. So yeah, it's still growing on me. Yeah,
I always tell people that New York is sensory overload.
for sure.
Constant. Um, so being from the DMV, right? And being an
Mm-hmm.
actress, how did that start out for you? Like what type of steps did you have to go through in order to go from, you know, not necessarily an entertainment hub to get to where you are now?
Mm-hmm. Um, well, I always knew that I wanted to be an artist. In the beginning, I thought I would be a singer, a recording artist, but I've always had a passion for the arts. And I think the first step for me was going to Duke Ellington School of the Arts in DC and learning as much as I could about the craft and, you know, the art form that I wanted to do at the time, which was mainly singing. But at Duke, I didn't end up learning a ton about the business or about, you know, which markets to get into, like whether that's New York, LA, Chicago, Minneapolis. Like there's so many different like markets, and that's the whole other conversation. But I didn't learn anything about that in high school. But you know, went to high school and then went to college. And then going to college, I decided that when I left high school, I was like, I just want to be a star, like whatever that means, and didn't know anything about the steps to getting to where I thought I might want to be. So I told myself, well, if I'm going to go to college, because I know my mom's going to make me go, it needs to be in Atlanta. Because at the time I was like, well, Jermaine Dupri is in Atlanta, Tyler Perry is in Atlanta. Like, I just need to go to Atlanta and then maybe I can, you know, make something happen. And that's how I came across Spelman. Didn't know anything about Spelman College, as brilliant an HBCU as it is. We're the number one HBCU in the country, but I didn't know anything about it. And, but I submitted my application, I got in, and I was like, great, I'm going to Atlanta and I'm going to, you know, try to make something happen there. And then from college, I studied music in college, but Atlanta became, while I was in school, the market of Atlanta was shifting because of like the tax breaks and things like that were coming in to make the entertainment industry more prominent there. So by the time I graduated, Atlanta was really starting to pop and become a hub. And I started taking acting classes and talking to working actors who had way more experience than me and getting their guidance, their mentorship, learning how to invest in myself, getting quality headshots, and kind of it grew from there. I think a shorter answer to your question would be I sought out mentorship. I sought out people who were doing the work that I wanted to do, and I let that be my first step.
See, now that's awesome. Come on, you go back. He's creeping past. Don't mind him. That's awesome because a lot of the times people don't learn about the industry. They think their
Mhm.
talent is enough. And
Yeah.
one of our sponsors, the Entrepreneurship School for the Artists, was started on that premises just to teach the marketing, the business, the all of that.
Yeah.
But you also said something that's key that a lot of people don't necessarily know offhand, and that's to network, to ask advice, to get that
Mhm.
guidance and leadership. Now, do you find that hard to do, or a lot of people open about giving that advice, or do you find them more reserved and standoffish?
I think, mhm. I think the right people are always open because you don't lose anything by sharing with folks. I think in terms of networking, though, I think where sometimes younger artists make the mistake, we're so often trying to look for like a famous person. Like we're looking beyond the people that are right in front of us, like trying to say like, you know, you're trying to get to people who have millions and millions of followers on Instagram and send them messages and say, how did you get started? Those people aren't as accessible. And there's a reason for that. They have their own things going on, their own reasons for wanting to protect themselves. That's totally understandable. But what I think young artists sometimes skip over are the mentors and people who are there to guide them that are right in their own community. You know, there were so many working actors, again, in Atlanta. There are so many amazing like professional theater companies in Atlanta. And once I started going to see shows, getting myself out there more, even just as an audience member, you meet all sorts of people and actors who have done far more than you've done, even if they're not household names. You know, not everybody that's a working actor that's really making a living doing this is a household name. And that doesn't have to be the goal for everyone. That's not everyone's path or trajectory in life in the first place. And I think it's important as artists, especially young artists, that we don't make fame so much of our focus. It's really, for me, is about the craft. I'm not knocking, like, it's nice to be recognized for the work that you do. It's nice to be recognized for doing good work. So in that way, I'm never going to knock fame because I think we all want that. All artists want that. We'd be lying if we said we didn't. But it can't just be about that. Like if you're not taking your craft seriously and seeking out people who can really help you in the place that you're at now, then you're not serious. If all you want is fame, you could do anything to be famous.
Yeah, haven't we seen that?
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, it has to be deeper than that. Yeah.
And I heard you say studying your craft, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to continue to study. A lot of people think once they're done with schooling, that's it. There's no more education involved. But we have seen that the people who go the furthest are the people who are continually investing in themselves.
Always.
How did you do that as a working actress?
Mm-hmm.
The time, the scheduling.
Yeah, it's difficult. So I'll say in the beginning, I took tons of acting classes, tons, all different types, theater classes, Shakespeare classes, on camera classes. I did a 2-week intensive with Steppenwolf West, which was in California, which was like 2 weeks of almost like being in grad school, like an MFA acting program. So things like that. I was in classes. And then I realized I started to audition and book theater roles. And it occurred to me, I was like, oh, being in the theater is like being in class. Every time I like work on a theater show, work on a play, I'm in class. Like you're doing scene study, you're doing, you know, you're learning about lights and blocking. And so I was like, oh, this is class. And so I began to look at anytime I booked a theater job as being in class. And eventually, of course, I delved into film and television, X, Y, and Z. And I would say now with my schedule being so busy, I'm finding the balance. Like when I'm working, but when I have that off time, then I do want to be doing something to keep my instrument fresh. For example, I just got into an acting class here in New York. I haven't started yet. I had to audition to get into the class. And now that now that I got through that phase of it, like I'll start going to class again, and I'll probably be in that class until like midsummer, and then we'll go back to filming. But that's important to me because first of all, it reminds me why I do what I do. It's easy to get caught up sometimes in everything that's going on, like, oh, you on TV every week, blah blah blah. But being in class always reminds me like why I love the craft so much. And I think if you're a real artist, you need those reminders. You need something to ground you, to remind you, like, this is why you do what you do. This is why you're a storyteller. It's not for all the hoo-ha, glitz, and glamour, although that's cute. But, like, you know, you do it for a deeper meaning, a deeper purpose. So I love class. I'm always back and forth. But I also think it's important for actors to know that class should not precede work. Yeah. Like, you shouldn't be in class so much and there's no fruit coming from it. Like, you're doing all this training, but you go into an audition room and you're not booking. Because then, if so, there's a disconnect there. So I think that's important.